Hello, my lovies, and welcome to this episode of Witches of Reddit. I am the Divination Death Witch, Rain, and today we're going to be talking about if the corporate sterile aesthetic offends the soul. Now, this is something I've actually been contemplating in my personal life lately. I've noticed it especially over this last year. But I came across this Reddit post yesterday. Now, the Reddit post is in the spiritual discussion subreddit. It is from 2 years ago, and the user who posted it has been suspended. When you look at the post, it will tell you that the user's been suspended. So I don't know what this user was up to. I don't know if their intentions were pure in posting this, or if this was supposed to be some sort of antagonistic thing, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like this is a genuine question, and I felt like it was serendipitous that I came across this post now when I've been contemplating this myself. I'm going to go ahead and read the post to you, and then we're going to talk about this from a few different aspects. Is it weird to anyone else that everything being built now looks sterile and cold? I guess I'm writing in a spirituality sub because the experience of the sterile design itself feels incredibly disconnected from what is real. I kind of hate going into a cafe that looks like a hospital, but prefer informal and rustic looking places that are earthy and comfy. Anyone else feel the same? Now, this person doesn't seem like they are necessarily in the spirituality circles, or at least not the spirituality circles that I tend to run in, which is perfectly okay. But even though their question is only skirting spirituality, I feel like it really is a spiritual question. It's funny that they mention cafes because it's actually the coffee shops here in Louisiana that really started to get me thinking about this topic. I think that we have all noticed that chains, particularly food chains, that used to have distinctive architecture like McDonald's, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, etc., no longer do that. For quite a long time now, whenever they erect a new building, it's pretty much just this square, minimalist, gray blob. They've really taken away any shape, character, uniqueness. The color schemes are much more muted and monotone than they ever were in the past. And there's a reason that they have done this. These chain stores know that they're going to go in and out of locations, but they either have to rent or buy that property that they're putting the building on, and they have to pay for the building construction. So they are building with flippability, if you will. I know that's not a word, but bear with me. They're building with flippability in mind. So when they are planning on building that McDonald's, that Pizza Hut, that Taco Bell, they are already planning on having to sell that building when they are done with it. And if it's shaped like a Taco Bell or a Pizza Hut, it makes it harder for them to resell. And so they build these cookie cutter, boring, basic, boxy, monochromatic, muted tone buildings so that it is easier for them to resell them to something else when they leave that location. So they are building with failure in mind, that this location is only going to serve them for a finite amount of time, and they are eventually going to resell this, and so they are building it expressly for the purpose of resale. Retailers have started taking this model too. They want it to be as basic and utilitarian and sterile as possible. They don't want anything to have character because resale value. Yes, I noticed these changes in big chain stores for quite some time now. That hasn't been lost on me, but I try not to go to those any more than is necessary in my day-to-day life. I try to avoid things like that. I try to go more to local small businesses when I can. Yes, I cannot avoid box stores altogether. So I do have to do shopping at box stores, my grocery shopping, things for household items. generally speaking, I've got to go to box stores for those. So I'm seeing what's going on there. But when I have a choice, especially with food, I will go to a locally owned restaurant or cafe or coffee shop before I will go to a chain one. Now, let's just be clear. I am anti-capitalist. I am anti-corporate America. That is my stance. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone who has followed me. So it's not just the lack of character in architecture that I find off-putting about these restaurants and stores and all this sterility that they are infusing into our society. Because let's face it, these environments feel more and more sterile as time moves on. My favorite coffee shops were back in Tacoma. Now, I had a couple in Pennsylvania that I did really like, but we tended to not be close to them, so I didn't get to go to them very often. But when we were in Tacoma, there were a couple of coffee shops that I very much enjoyed. And one of them was a solo location, locally owned. I actually have a video here on the channel about reading at that because it was in the historical Bostwick building. So you can go check that out if you want. But that building, that coffee shop had so much character. It had some rich colors in it, a lot of live plants. It was very cozy and comfy, and it had a vibe, an energy, a life to it that was all its own. Now, the other coffee shop that I would frequent a lot in Tacoma, it was a local chain. So there were a couple of them, but they were a local chain. And I mean very local, like only within Tacoma chain. And it had art murals on the wall. It had cozy lighting. The tables were all mismatched and wooden and rustic. It had a lot of character, a lot of personality, a lot of energy in that space. When I moved here to South Louisiana, I have yet to find a coffee shop that matches that. I do have a coffee shop here in my local town that I'm kind of not in love with, but I do like it better than a chain coffee shop. It tries for cozy, but then falls short with the sterile walls and the metal tables and chairs. It's almost like it was trying to go for a half cozy, half industrial vibe, but the way in which it's done, it's a place you can sit in for a little while and have a cup of coffee, but you're not going to sit and stay and write poetry or do tarot readings or work on your novel. There is a chain coffee shop that I like here. Again, it's more of a local chain. I've only seen it in this area of South Louisiana. I don't know how far out it spreads. I've never seen it in Pennsylvania or in Washington. But they did try for a cozy vibe, and they're almost there. But again, there's still this sterileness about it. There's this monochromatic lack of character to the place. They did put in some comfy chairs, so that helps. But again, it's not a place that I'm going to want to sit for an hour even and do readings or write or anything like that. It doesn't fuel my soul. It's a space that is okay for me to go and have a cup of coffee in, but it's not nourishing to my soul. And I want to be in spaces that do just that, that nourish my soul, that inspire me, that bring out my creativity, that help me get in touch with my soul, my spirit, my intuition, my guides, all of that. Now, maybe that's because I am a proponent of the philosophy that whenever possible, we should romanticize our lives. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean using aesthetics and vibes around you to feed the soul, feed your creativity, feed your joy, and things like that. If that means using a certain teacup to have your tea, or having certain plants around, or using a certain color palette, or whatever it takes, having some flowers on the table, whatever it takes for you to feel like you are living in whatever romantic storyline that you want for yourself. That's going to look different for everyone, but I am a firm believer in, whenever you can, romanticize your life. Now, this doesn't mean romanticize relationships and connections that are toxic for you, or situations or places that are toxic for you. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a place that is neutral to positive, relationships that are neutral to positive, and finding ways to romanticize those to bring more joy into your life. So I do want to throw that caveat in there. And I really for a while thought my disappointment in modern architecture, if you will, when it comes to corporate spaces, retail spaces, even, food industry spaces, was a me thing. And I'm starting to realize that it's not. It is an effect of corporate America trying to suck the soul out of every last one of us, in my not so humble opinion. And not only has this been prevalent in corporate spaces and then trickling down into not so corporate businesses, smaller locally owned businesses have taken on this model too, because they need to survive amongst the bigger fish. But this is spilled over into our homes as well, I have realized. Because if you watch TikTok, I get a lot of decorator TikTok. Again, romanticize your life. I want my place to look cozy. And so you've seen a big push in housing that if you own your house, you're supposed to only use bland colors, neutral colors, monochromatic color schemes. You want everything to be beige or gray or white. Very, very sterile. Because even though it's your home that you live in and that is your space, there is this mindset pushed on us of it needs to have resale value. And if we do anything to make it our own or romanticize it or give it any sort of character, we destroy the resale value. And the message we are given is the only thing that matters is the resale value of our home. So not only are we in spaces outside of our home that don't feed our soul, we are living in homes that don't feed our souls either. And this is not just true for homeowners. We're really seeing that push now in homeowners, and we have been for a little while, but it's all about the resale value. But think about renting as well. I've noticed that a lot more landlords, because a lot more rental spaces are corporate owned than privately owned. And so corporate spaces, definitely, you really are limited in what you are allowed to do to your apartment or your house that you are renting from a corporation, because they're all about, it has to be rent ready for the next person. It's got to be cookie cutter, sterile, boring, basic, no life in it, so that as soon as you move out, it is ready for the next person to move in, because they don't want to have to strip away any of that character that you put in there, because it's all about resale and it's all about re-rentability. And I'm not saying that landlords should let you paint your walls all sort of psychedelic, out there colors, designs, and patterns, and then you just leave and they're stuck with trying to bring it back to something that's more neutral so that they can rent it out to another person. I'm not talking about being allowed to do wild and crazy things, though I think that is nice when there are landlords that are willing to let people do that. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do if you own your own house. But I get that when it comes to rentals, there does need to be a middle ground. But we've moved to this ultra sterile way of living. Now, you're free to disagree with me, but as a pagan, I believe we are of nature, one with nature, and we are meant to spend time in nature. Nature is not boring and monochromatic. Even in winter, in places where it snows and all the leaves are off the tree, there's still shades of gray and white and brown and black, and there's texture. So even when it's a more monochromatic color scheme in, the dark half of the year, there's still textures and sounds and smells. There's variety. There are things to stimulate our senses and our soul. I think we need that both on an emotional and psychological level and on a spiritual level. The colors that we are surrounded by do have an impact on us. The items in our space do have an energetic impact on us. Whether you are into feng shui or not, the principles still apply, whether you follow strict feng shui rules, or you just believe that there's an energy flow through all things, which, spoiler alert, there is, the way our space looks and feels to us has a direct impact on our subtle body, our vibrations, our energy, our soul. So I think that this corporate sterile aesthetic really is eating away at, eroding our well-being on a emotional, psychological level and on a spiritual level, because it's not feeding us and we are just withering in these environments. And I feel like I'm starting to see pushback against this. I see a lot of influencers who are doing cozy vibes sort of decorating. There's a whole genre in video gaming of cozy games. So if we're not getting the coziness, the character, the color, the richness in our environment and what we have to go do out in the world, we're getting it virtually through these video games, which I think is fun and inspiring and can be a positive thing, but I don't think it's enough. I think we need it in our real physical environment, not just in a video game. But the biggest thing to me that shows that in this late capitalist stage that we are in America, that we are pushing back against the corporate sterility is with our holiday trees this year. Whether you call them Yule trees or Christmas trees, doesn't matter. But our holiday trees, to me, this year are honestly a huge sign to me that we are finally starting to wake up to the fact that these sterile environments aren't good for us, and we are starting to push back. And I'll tell you why I see it this way. I grew up with what are now called nostalgic or memory trees. And so our holiday tree was decorated with a bunch of lights, a bunch of tinsel, garland, and then the ornaments were all mishmash. There was no theme. It was whatever ornaments we liked, whatever ornaments were passed down from family, whatever the kids made, whatever somebody happened to see at the store and really liked. All of those were put on the tree, and there was no real rhyme or reason. It was just sort of almost a collage, honestly, that was the holiday tree. And for the longest time, that is how I did holiday trees. Then we saw this move towards themes, and then the themes became less and less colorful, and our trees just became, for lack of a better word, beige. They would be monochromatic, a lot of white trees, a lot of beige trees, a lot of pale pink trees, but they were very not colorful. They also didn't have a whole lot of creativity. There were no personalized ornaments on a lot of these. It's a lot of just clusters of the ball ornaments, which, don't get me wrong, I like them. They have their place. Have always been on my tree. I'm not dissing on them. But it's a very formula kind of system of decorating holiday trees, where you pick a color and everything is that color, usually monochromatic. For several years, those were the epitome of trees. That's what you would see advertised everywhere. I'm not saying we all subscribed to that and fell in line with that, but a lot of people did. And those were the trees that we were told, this is the classic Christmas tree. This is what your tree should look like. This is the height of fashion when it comes to the holidays and all of that. And it was very sterile. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they weren't pretty. I'm not saying that they don't have a place. And if you like that kind of tree, that is perfectly fine. Some people do enjoy that. That is okay. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, and I do like those in certain settings. But I've been particularly aware of holiday tree trends this year because we have the big house now. Big for us. Other people would consider our house small, but I consider it huge and a blessing. But we are actually going to do multiple trees, which is something I've never done. And so what we were doing is, because we were gifted a tree with the house, we have not been able to have a tree for several years. We no longer have any of our decorations for the holidays or trees that we used to have. There's like a few ornaments that we managed to keep in our stuff and not get broken, but for the most part, anything we had for decorating a tree for the holidays has been lost in our moves. I call our dining room the game cafe. It is where we play a lot of tabletop games, and then I've let my husband decorate it with all of his geek stuff, as we call it. And the tree that we were left with the house fits perfectly in the one corner of the dining room. And it has all of the multicolored lights. Now, this has always been a thing between my husband and I. He loves the multicolored lights on the trees. I prefer the classic clear lights. Just a matter of preference. But since we have that tree and it's multicolored, that tree is in our dining room. That tree is going to be decorated with a mishmash of ornaments. I told them they can get all the geeky stuff they want, and my husband and the boys can decorate that all up. So it's going to have video game ornaments, and it's going to have probably some food ornaments and whatever sort of pop culture things that they find that they want to put on that tree. Now, since they are doing that tree that way, that tree is going to be loud. It's going to have a lot of color on it. It's going to have a lot going on. So the tree that will be going in the living room, we actually are going to probably go by this weekend. And it is a tree that it looks like it's got snow on it. It's got pine cones, provided they still have it in stock when we go. That's the tree we're going to get. And I want to do the red pickup truck, basically, is kind of my inspiration. So all of the ornaments on that tree are going to be red. I'm probably going to do a combination of ribbons and different textured red bulb ornaments, because that tree is supposed to be the cleaner, more good housekeeping tree, if you will. It's the formal tree, I'm calling it. And so that will have a cleaner aesthetic to it, but it's still going to be colorful. There's going to be a lot of pops of red. So while the elements on the tree will be what I would call more conservative, if you will, because it's the formal tree, it's still going to be colorful. It's still going to stand out. It's still going to pop. It's going to be this romantic Yule tree with the rich reds and the green and the snow effect and the pine cones, and hopefully a little red pickup truck under it. Now, I'm telling you all this to say that as I am going through TikTok and YouTube looking for ideas of different ways to do ribbons and bows on the tree and different ways to do the ornaments, I have discovered that what is trending this year is the Ralph Lauren Christmas tree. Now, of course, Ralph Lauren, expensive and pricey, but the idea really is it's using these rich colors, these greens and these reds. It's very earthy. It's very cozy. And it is a look that you can achieve without having to spend designer money. You can go to your Dollar Tree and your Walmart or wherever you buy your decorations for the holidays and get less expensive versions of these ribbons and ornaments, and that, because it's more about a color palette than it is about the actual designer items. At a time when people are losing their SNAP benefits and there's all these cuts to healthcare, and we've got all of this going on in our authoritarian dictatorship fascism society, it's like, okay, we've realized the sterileness, we've realized that none of this has fed our soul, that it has been detrimental to us, and we're trying to bring in this element of coziness and character through the holidays to nourish our souls. People who aren't even into spirituality, who don't take energies of places and people and things into consideration, are instinctively going towards this cozier vibe. And I don't think it's just a fashion trend, right? Because fashion trends come and go. I think there really is a significance to the fact that this trend is what's coming in vogue right now as we are going through all of this stuff. I think there is this sense, even if we're not conscious of it, that we need more color, character, and coziness in our lives. That sterileness that the corporate world has injected into our everyday lives is not sustaining us. It's not good for us. And I'm just talking about the energy of the buildings. We're not even talking about the economics, the politics, all of that, because there's so much with capitalism and corporate America and greed that is not good for us on any level, a physical level, an emotional level, a spiritual level. It's not good for us in any sense of anything for our well-being. But I think that there is sort of this instinctive call for coziness and richness of color in our environments because we need that nourishment to our souls. We've been too long without it. We've gone too far in this sterile corporate world, and now people are more and more, at least what I'm seeing, they are saying, fuck it, it's my house, I'm going to decorate it the way I want to so that it has character and color and makes me happy. We're seeing more and more people find renter-friendly ways of modifying their rental homes, apartments, so that it is cozier, more colorful, or at least in a color palette of beige that they enjoy. But there's this craving for more character, more color, more richness, for better energy in our spaces. Because again, all of that has an energy. Every knickknack that you have in your house or don't have in your house creates an energy shift in your environment. Every color you use, every texture you use, all of that impacts the energy of your space, which has an impact on your soul. And I think that we have been spiritually starved in these sterile environments. And now, even if we're not conscious of that, there is this craving for coziness that is going to nurture our souls. And it is a pushback against what corporate America has done to us in more senses than a lot of us know. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think? Has the sterility of corporate America started to starve your soul? How have you pushed back against that, or have you not pushed back against that? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. That way you know when I post, because this is just a hobby of mine. I do not post on a regular schedule anymore. If you are interested in getting a reading from me or a mentorship with me, you can get in touch with me through my website or my Etsy shop. My link tree is in the description box below. Until I see you again, my lovelies, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.